I hope hey, listen, just let all of this be on the podcast so everyone that's listening, they can go, what the fuck's going on, right? But different setup than we've had before, guys. We've got a custom setup. We've changed our background a couple different times, but new season for us, which is dope. We like where we're at. You're not going to hear Eli today, not that you hear him much anyway, right? Like, not that he doesn't have good stuff to say, but we just, typically I'm talking. But we've got a good buddy on the podcast today. Calls himself a doctor. We'll talk about that because it's like snake. What do you call it? Snake
That's
oil.
painful. That was not a good start.
I know, but I have to say it because it's
Cut,
like,
restart.
I got a buddy who's a chiropractor for
Yeah.
Goldberg,
Right.
and he wants to crack my back so bad. I'm like, dude, I can't do it. But we're going to get into Derek Price here in a second, right? But professional football, doctor, CEOs of extremely large companies, 7-figure, no, 8-figure, 9 figures,
Yep.
correct? CEOs of those. And recently gave all of that up, right? So your resume of professional football and being a doctor and then being a CEO of medical practices, gone, done. And I love it because our podcast is called Day $1
Yeah.
And we talk to people about, hey, what was your literal Day $1? And then how do you still approach every day like it's Day $1? And there's a lot of fun stories that go in there, but like, it's been a while, if ever, Eli can nod his head to this since he's not mic'd up for this, but I can't remember the last time we had somebody on a podcast that was as successful as you while also throwing it all away and starting anew. Mm-hmm. You're literally in a Day $1 right now, like a literal day one of coaching, $0 of coaching, and it's interesting, but I'll let you kind of get into your background before we get into what you're doing now. Mm-hmm. And there's going to be some funny stories because I'm going to argue you on chiropractic work as I hunch over my lower back right now.
Yeah.
My hip flexors.
Keep sitting there in
I'm
pain.
gonna argue
What you're doing is working
I'm going to
well.
argue you. But anything you want to say about yourself or anything that I missed minus the snake oil?
No, man. I it's interesting when you say day $1. It's interesting because, you remember when I called you about 6 months ago. Was I just picked up the phone. I go, hey, Will. And you go, hey, man, what's up? Like, just day to day, we have our conversation. I go, hey, man, I just quit my job.
Yeah.
And your answer was like, well, that's awesome.
What did that job pay as CEO? Over $500,000 a year,
yeah, we did
incentives,
good. We did
bonuses. Cool.
Yeah, we did well. And it's actually funny, like, why I really left that, why I got out of that industry was, and this is going to bring in the chiropractic side, so don't be, like, jaded or upset, but when I left sports, like when we get off that train, when you get off the train in military, we get off the train or whatever, and you're forced with like my team's going down that way and I'm over here, and I was like, well, I want to stay in this, so chiropractic, physical therapy kind of body work made sense to me. And I happened to drop into a guy's office, and it looked like the guy was running a gym. They called him doctor. He was helping people, and people were genuinely happy to be there.
That's cool.
And then I went to a family practice. I have some uncles and cousins that are anesthesia and family practice. And people were miserable, and they were sick, and they were snotty, and it's just like that wasn't the doctoring I wanted to do. Long story short, I go to chiropractic school, whatever. But when I got out, it was what kept me in it for so long was doing what we're doing right now, like sitting knee to knee with another human being and trying to like interpret their life puzzle as to why things aren't working. Maybe it's their knees, back, hips, headaches.
They're
Shoulders,
talking
whatever.
symptoms, and you're trying to figure out like the root cause
like
of stuff, right?
I'm putting clues together, right?
And where did this come from? Because you went to chiropractic school after the NFL, and that's kind of like what I want to get into, and we'll talk about how you and I met as well later on in the interview. He's a huge bully. We'll talk about that. NFL,
Yeah.
no NFL. You decide to go back to college. Like, what did that story look like for you? And I think it's important too because a lot of folks that listen to this podcast, it's like whether they've gone through a start over before and they can relate to it, or man, maybe they're in a career right now and they have the feeling of like they want to go be an entrepreneur and they want to do something, but they're fearful and there's some discomfort. You were kind of forced into entrepreneurship. You were forced into injury. Go figure it out. I'm sure like there's some identity struggle.
Yeah.
Because overnight football was taken from you.
Yeah.
This was not a retire Tom Brady right off into the sunset. Do I want to play 1 or 2 more years and leave on a Super Bowl like
Right.
Peyton Manning and sail off? And I had this plan. No, it was like injury, done.
Yeah, man, it's funny because this whole story is going to boil down to one interaction with one person that lasted about 20 seconds. That was my entire pivot. But I'll build to that. So I'm with Detroit. things are going well. I'm a rookie. I'm getting on
And
the
you're
field.
in Detroit, Barry Sanders era, right?
Yeah, Barry Sanders, which is odd. I got to meet him and spend a lot of time with him and actually know him well in the locker room. The man just very profound, doesn't say a lot, but when he does, it matters. So everybody listens. And a great life lesson I pick up from him I use all the time is practice. But so I'm doing the NFL thing and it's going well. And the season ends and I knew I was hurt, but I didn't want to tell anybody because back then, like if you were hurt, you can't make the club if you're sitting in the tub.
Yep.
You tell somebody you're hurt, listen, I wasn't the best guy in the NFL. I was the lucky to be their guy in the NFL. There was 1,000 guys that could do the job as well as I did.
Like a
in the
Julian
NFL.
Edelman, like the guy that was like just a workhorse.
Yeah,
doing a
dude,
great
I was
job,
like, I was at the right place at the right time, made the right catch in the camp, and they signed me to a team.
Yeah.
Right? I was not like a first-round draft pick or anything like that, right? So in my mind, I was lucky to be there. I was scrapping to stay alive like literally every day. And with about 4 games left to go in the season, I run down on kickoff and hit a guy. My body goes right, my head goes left. I heard a big crack, my arm went numb, like just lighted up on fire. And I played through the next 4 games not talking to anybody about it other than, a couple of my close teammates.
Did the feeling come back?
No, not at all. Like I lost complete feel of it. Like it got to like you can see it on film. I'm like shaking my arm. And the funny thing was my playing time was ramping up at the end of the season. Mostly because everybody else just got hurt. They had no other choice, right? But it's my last games against the 49ers. And we had this terrible play where I moved from tight end to fullback and then got to lead block on Ken Norton Jr. And we ran that play like 4 or 5 times in a row. And like it was the only time I went in motion. He knew it. And that was where we just collided faces. Like just head to head. And every time I was like, this is going to hurt so bad that I hope I don't pass out. Like actually thinking like, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. Anyway, get on the plane, fly home. Hey, you did great. Here's a new contract. Here's a multi-year contract for the next year. Goes to my agent. I'm like, dude, let's sign it. They're like, all right, cool. Go back to an OTA, like the optional training camp after the draft. And I walk in. I'm 265 pounds. I have a 19-inch right arm or 18-inch right arm and like a 12-inch left arm. The nerves in my neck going to my arm and my shoulder have been crushed and basically cut off. So their supply just died. So I couldn't make the muscles fire. It was just basically becoming like limp fish. And it just would sit here and twitch all day long.
Fuck.
And so when I walked in, it took all of about 10 seconds for my coaches to be like, what is that and what's wrong with you?
They're like, how long you been
And
jacking off like that, bro?
I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm good. I'm good to go, coach. Put me in. And, they're like, hard pass, no. Immediately sent me out to Los Angeles, got me at the Kerlan Jobe Clinic, set me up with world-class doctors. Funny story, I met Shaquille O'Neal and had a 1-hour conversation with Shaquille O'Neal. And if he's watching, that's great. But I didn't understand a word the man said like the whole time. Like, and I was like, I don't know what you just said, but it's just me and you.
Dig it? On his way
But
out.
like such a nice dude. And it was the surgeon that pivoted my whole life. World-class surgeon. Seeing guys like Shaquille O'Neal and whatever. And I just, again, lucky to be there and lucky to get in to see him. And he shows me the curvature of my neck and says, like from a lateral view from the side, and he's like, your neck should look like this so it can absorb shock. Your neck is like this so when you hit it just exploded. And I was like, oh, okay, bad luck. He's like, well, you should have went to a chiropractor to get that restored, and then you wouldn't probably have had this injury. And I said, like a total naive
What's a
dipshit.
chiropractor?
Yeah, right. What is he gonna like put chicken blood in my ears or crystals on my forehead? Ha, doc, like F those chiropractor witch doctors.
You sounded like me. Yeah.
Exactly.
Great.
And this doctor looks at me and he said, that is a very naive statement. And just eyeballed me and walked out of the room.
Wow.
And I can tell you what I was wearing. I can tell you where the x-ray was. I can tell you what he was wearing. I can probably tell you what cologne he was wearing. Tell you what the lighting situation. I mean, it was so profound that like it like imprinted on me. So surgery, boom, go back to Detroit. Lloyd's in London's like, hey, you don't get to play this game. You got plates and screws in your neck. They release me, I retire, done. What's the next plan? I go back, I walk right into a chiropractor's office. It's just the closest one to my house. And I'm like, what do you guys do? And that's where I saw this activity of life going on, of people working out and exercise and happiness and eating and healthy and all the things that I held true, that I thought
Because chiropractic work isn't just cracking your back.
No, man. That's
cracking bones. Like there's other stuff.
Yeah, it's like saying baseball is just catching pop flies, right? It's a piece of it, right? Yeah. But there's a lot that goes into it. And ultimately, like a good doctor of any doctor is going to say, like, what is everything at my disposal that I can use with you?
But we can agree
Yeah.
that the guy that invented chiropractic work is a weird dude.
Well, you didn't know what he was doing, right? Like, so like you couldn't measure the signs. So there was a lot of weird.
He was on to something, but he was also just doing weird shit.
There's
right?
a lot of weird. There's a lot of weird stories back then.
He's
for
like
sure.
equivalent to like the guy that created what's that religion?
Scientology.
Scientology.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
Well, for all the chiropractors out there, don't pin me into that, like, saying that DJ
no
BJ
chiropractors
Palmer.
watch our shit except for my friend Josh, fucker.
Okay.
So you see that. You
So
see
I
that
see
environment.
it. So here's the timeline, and this is important because it kind of sets up who I am. And you asked that question. I'm in the NFL. I have the surgery. I come back. They give me time to recover. Bobby Ross, the head coach, calls me into his office right before the season starts and says, "Son, I will never put you on the field. You have plates and screws in your neck, and no matter what the lawyers and what the doctors come back with, say and come back officially,
Too high risk.
I will never put you on the field because I have children, and I would never let them play this game with the injury that you've had. However, you have a multi-year contract. You've earned your spot here. Everybody likes you. You've done what we've asked you to do. You can travel with us for the next 2 to 3 years. You'll be injured reserve. You don't get to play, but you can be part. This is part of your life. You've earned this. You can enjoy that.
That's kind of a cool thing for him
Or-
to do, right?
You can close this chapter of your life and move on." And it took about 5 seconds, and I was like, I'm just not an entourage guy.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you, and I'm out. Boom. I go back to Arizona. I'm there for about 4 weeks. What am I going to do? I got a degree from University of Iowa. What am I going to do? Where am I going to go? Football was kind of the game plan. So, like, what's the job? Walk
Degree
into
from Iowa,
chiropractor.
so agriculture.
Yeah, well, I'm from Arizona. I just went to Iowa because Arizona State wouldn't recruit me.
Interesting, right?
Yeah, man, I won every award you could possibly get. And I'm like, I want to go to Arizona State. I grew up right here in Tempe. Like, Stanford, Ohio State, Michigan, Iowa, Florida State. I couldn't get into ASU. They just were not interested.
Yeah.
They didn't recruit locally, so I'm still upset about that. But anyway, the words that surgeon hit me with hit so hard that, like, when I said I don't want to stay here anymore, I go home. I'm married at the time now too, so now I have a wife I have to provide for, and I go, let me go check out this chiropractor. I like that, and I go, how do I do this? And so he's like, well, here's a couple chiropractic schools. I call them, and they're like, well, you have to have all these science classes as prereqs with your undergrad to get in. I didn't have science classes. I did a lot of math classes, right? So I go back and do another year of college, like OChem and physics and things like that,
Dude.
to get there. And then I go into chiropractic school and spend 4 years there. And then I get out, and that's when I really that's where like my true passion, like I liked football. I loved football for the teammates. I loved football for the single direction and purpose. I loved football for the structure. The game itself was a means to an end for me. It paid for my college when I was broke, and it paid me in my first career when I needed a job.
It wasn't even fun in college, like just playing the game and scoring touchdowns.
I just enjoyed the camaraderie of the locker room more than I enjoyed the fanfare.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Like, I liked the brotherhood of people doing the same thing together and having like we could pick on each other. Like me and you could pick on each other right here. If somebody else walks in this room, like, heaven forbid they pick on Will in front of me or vice versa.
100%.
You know what I mean? Like, it's that. But
Yeah.
to your point, like, that galvanizes. That's not, you just don't bolt that together.
So
That's
you go from that.
galvanize.
How old were you when you went back to college?
24.
Because I went back to college after I was in,
Yeah.
like in the Marine Corps. Did you go to class?
Yeah.
Because I went to class.
Yeah, man.
And there's 18, 19-year-olds in class.
I'm sitting in there, OChem 1-2, Chem 1-2, Biochem 1-2.
But I talk about
of
OChem, not a lot, but like I'll reference it sometimes. Like, it was just hard for me. OChem was hard. What was it like going back to school? Old.
You know, because so when I went through school the first time, I grew up without a dad. My dad passed away when I was 7. And so I'm the oldest boy, and my mom was working she was a math teacher, high school math teacher. And she was teaching morning classes, regular classes, and then teaching night classes to try and keep us fed. Like, we grew up with hey man, do you want a Christmas present or do you want heat this winter? Like, what is your options?
Yeah,
You know?
same.
And so when I got in trouble, which was often, and it wasn't for doing like bad stuff, but it was like, yeah, I jumped my bike over the canal and you told me not to, but
Yeah,
like I had to try it,
Yeah,
right?
that was me, yeah.
And so it got to where like spankings, it didn't mean anything. So she'd be like, all right, when you can pass the quiz in the back of chapter 8 geometry book, when you're like in 6th grade, you're ungrounded. So however long that takes you is how long it takes you.
That's cruel.
You can be grounded for 8 months.
Cruel and unusual.
You can be grounded for an
punishment.
hour. Depends on, but it was
Yeah.
like, here's the task.
I'm
You
so
accomplished this
glad.
task.
Rest in peace, Mom. I'm so glad she didn't figure that one out.
So when I get to college, like statistics and numbers like were easy for me,
Yeah.
right? Because I got in trouble a lot. But I was going through school because I wanted to stay eligible to play football. And I really didn't have a job in mind like, hey, I'm going to college and I want to become this X. It was, I'm going to college because that's what you do, so I can go play this game with this brotherhood of human beings that I love to be around.
Yep.
And I love to work out and I love all that stuff. And then when that all went away and you have that loss of identity, right? And then I said, hey, well, I like to help people. Like I realized that like I have a satiety in helping people, and that's when I was like, I want to go look in this chiropractic thing. I want to be a doctor. This looks like a good avenue. And when I went back to school, OChem previously to my injury would have been ridiculously impossible. Biochem 1, 2, anatomy AP 1, 2, et cetera. Would have been really, really hard. But now I was like, I want to learn this because I want to apply it down the road.
Yeah.
And I think we talked about that earlier during dinner, like read to apply, right? So I was able to basically graduate cum laude from 4 years of chiropractic school and graduate with honors and all that kind of stuff. And it was great.
Is there like a secret society?
Yeah, but I can't tell you.
They make you drink blood and do weird shit.
It wouldn't be a secret if I
I'm
outed
like,
it
all
right
right,
here.
you're graduated with honors, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
There's a secret cult, but you can't know about that, Will.
I'm gonna introduce you to Josh. He keeps trying to crack me, and I'm like, it's just weird.
You should.
Eli, it's fucking weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it's weird that he wants to crack me. Maybe
I just want to put my hands on you.
It's that.
And that's why I do jujitsu. If it's not jujitsu, I'm cracking people. It's one or the other, right?
It's that.
But fast forward to the story. So I do the chiropractic thing, and I get into, and I really enjoyed. I fell in love with meeting people with where they're at, and meeting people with the problem that they walked in the door. And I would see 100 patients a day. That's a lot of human beings.
Prior to you getting it right, like when you leave football, and you're starting school, like any lows there, any like when you talked about like I just kind of like miss my identity, certain things, like any stressors, any marriage stressors, any self-respect stressors, like
Every one of them.
Like, what was it like going through that? Because that feel like that was a day $1.0 for you as well.
So every one of them, when I don't have a clear and concise plan in front of me, when I don't have a mission, and I'm free floating, it's easy for me to get stuck in my head.
But even when you got the mission, all right, I'm going to go to school. There's still uncertainty that. Okay.
I shifted. Like, I took the focus that I put into being successful in sport. And I found the same passion going like, I really want to go be a doctor.
So that's, who is it?
I just shifted focus.
Miyamashi Masho. There's a Japanese samurai that talks about it. When you know the way abroad, it translates. And I'm botching the quote, so I'm not quoting it. But he talks about when you know the way abroad, you can see it in all things. As in, when you know what it takes to win at a high level, that then translates into other industries, other aspects, right? Like there's got to be something about football and how much you studied and prepared and executed. It's like, hey, I've never done chiropractic work, but I've learned how to win.
Sure.
Right? Like any thoughts you got on like how important it is for people to just understand conceptually of just staying committed and learning how to win? Because I feel like a lot of people, they dance around and they do a lot of things and they never quite get it going. It's like, because you can't, like, you got to pick one and maybe find some structure. Like yours was in football. You're forced to do shit whether you want to do it or not. If you want to play. In the Marine Corps, I'm forced to do shit whether I want to or not. If I want to be a great Marine, if you want to be here, and they find ways to push you past your own breaking point and kind of rebuild you. And it's so hard to do that on your own because your own threshold of what you think your breaking point isn't. It's further, but then your ability to rebuild yourself is also not by yourself. So I feel like having that from the Marine Corps, maybe similar like with football, how important it was to just learn how to win.
I think for each of us, we have an algorithm of success. We have a recipe, and we trust that recipe once we brew it once or twice, and we're like, hey, this worked and this worked, and from what I did, what I learned then to what I'm doing now, my day $1.0 now at Faction Foundation, where I'm coaching people. I knew there's two things that are within my control: my attitude and my effort. Outside of that, I didn't control your coaching decision.
No, but you know how to, like, you know how you learn.
Yeah.
Like when I was going through like real estate, like you can read the books or you can watch the videos or you can do both. I watch the videos. Like you know what I'm saying? Like when you're going through school again, you had to know how to learn, man. Like and stick to that. Like interesting enough that like you could have quit school whenever you wanted, didn't. Like I'm just curious about like the emotional weight of just going through that.
I learned to learn more.
Like, did you emotionally eat? Did you fucking? You're all shredded now.
No.
Like, did you emotionally eat? Did you fucking?
No, I'm weird, right? Like, the weight room is my meditation. It's my church. And then I also got really, really lucky in that, like, I legitimately married like my best friend and counterpart early in life, and we've been together for 30 years.
She did you a huge favor.
Like, she centered and balanced and like, so I called you the day that I walked away from my job.
Correct.
I called my wife and said the same thing. And she goes, okay, well, what are you going to do next? Not, what are you doing? Go back. We're in comfort and da-da-da-da-da. Okay, cool. What are you going to do next? Because she's seen it.
Yeah.
And she trusts it, but she's seen it because she's allowed. We have a partnership, right? So I don't get to just say, I'm going to go do this without my partner's buy-in. Like you don't make moves without Eli's. You guys have a mutual respect.
Just like
right?
you called me, then you called your wife.
Well, I called her first.
No. Someone just said. Someone just said, I call Eli.
Yeah.
Then I call my wife.
Yeah.
No, I understand.
But and that's who I surround myself with, though.
Sure.
And I think yeah, attitude and effort are great. But I've created my own plan, playbook, and coach. Like I use you as a coach. Like I called you for the sake of saying, number one, you're a close friend of mine, and I'm spiraling because I didn't have that plan when I walked out. I jumped out without a parachute.
Good.
You see, you have to go back to why I left. And the reason why I left was as my healthcare career continued to advance, I went from sitting knee to knee with a patient to watching other doctors see patients, to owning the businesses, to owning the surgery studios, to owning the orthopedic and the pain and the spine, to having exits from all of that, from then going into mental health, which is completely different, and to CEOing of hospitals with 500 staff that do $100 million a year, and then realizing at the end of my career that I got into something to help human beings because it gave me spiritual safety, and sure, the money took care of itself.
Yep.
But for me to make money at that level, really didn't have a lot to do anymore with patient care. As a matter of fact,
running a business, man.
It was like, if you want to get your bonus, you need to contribute more to EBITDA, and your strategist says, if you can cut the patient's lunch from a $10 a day spend to an $8 a day spend, and if we can only flip their rooms once a day and change their sheets, the housekeeping reduction, and if we can hold off on these CapEx, and if I can suspend these raises, I'll make this money. And I started looking at it and saying, like, I'm not playing for the person anymore. I'm playing for shareholders. I'm playing for stock. I'm paying for my boss. I'm playing for the business. And there's fine. I'm not poo-pooing on that, but that's not why I got into it.
If you're gonna own business, right, and like see it as in it's business now, it's like, well, what business do I want to be owner of?
Exactly. So, and what I want to be owner of is what I feel like I do best,
Right.
which is meeting people where they're at, providing plan, playbook, coaching, and the unique side is bringing together a team.
And I'm right.
Putting that in there.
Exactly. And I'm glad you mentioned fitness when you're like, hey, like when I'm going through this, whether it was going through chiropractic school or starting something anew, like the gym is my sanctuary. It's my church. And something that I've talked a lot about on this podcast and just through my career of just anytime like something's been off, right? Like I go back to my basics of food, water, sleep, workout. Typically one of those is off, if not fucking all of them, right? Like, but when I was sleeping in a pantry, right, I filed for bankruptcy, I leave what I'm doing and I start in real estate. Had no money, nothing. So I'm sleeping in my buddy's mom's pantry, her Y2K pantry in the basement. Remember Y2K?
Yeah, I sure do.
Dude, the first pandemic, right, of like people fucking.
I was in chiropractic school during Y2K.
Because you're old as shit. You're
That's
right.
a little
I was
painful.
like fucking 3.
I feel like this is elderly abuse right here, and it's being recorded.
Oh,
and
he's
so if
right.
anything ever happens, somebody turn him in for elder abuse.
Oh, he got me to stop saying it. You're right. It is abuse. So
I feel like Biden right now.
Yeah.
I feel like I just got elder abused.
Hey, I'm not going to say it anymore. You're right. Okay. But when I was in that pantry, right, and I'm studying for my license online, and the one thing I committed to just keep my mind right and keep moving forward, I'd wake up, I'd go to the gym. I'd come home, eat a snack, and I'd study all day. Then I'd go do lift at night to just make a buck, for gas money and stuff like that. And I'd do lift at night. I'd come home, go to sleep, wake up, go to the gym, study all, but I was keeping like my nutrition decent. I was keeping my gallon of water a day, but I was making sure I was making it to the gym. Like, it's just interesting how strong those fundamentals are of just keeping your focus, even when you can't necessarily see like what the future's gonna look like, right? Like when I was committing to real estate, it was like, I'm gonna do this for a year. Once I'm licensed, I'm gonna commit to a full year with my level of effort, my level of intention, and this is either gonna work or I will meet someone or something while doing this, and it will make me work. But it's interesting that you kind of like fall on the same foundation because part of like the coaching that you do and everything also derives from the fact that you've swam whatever the canal is on the planet.
It's the English Channel.
The English Channel.
Keep saying that.
You swam that fucking thing. You've done countless Ironmans.
Yeah.
Like there's this whole endurance athlete side of you that still was like rebirthed in addition to becoming a doctor, being a CEO. It's like you still found this competitive edge with athletics, or at least with competition, right? Like, where did that whole thing start? Because obviously, being a football player, being 2'6", like you're not swimming the Highline Canal. You know what I mean? That's the
It came from comfort. So,
Did it?
So yeah.
Like, was it just an escape, and you could just go? It was quiet.
So let's run it back to my childhood, right? And I probably wouldn't have said this 5 years ago before I got into mental health and really learned what childhood does and doesn't do to different people. But let's run it back to my childhood. Latchkey kid. If you even know what that term means, you might be too young. What that means
Way too young.
is like your parents are gone before you leave for school, and your parents are still gone when you get
They'll
home.
have the key on the latch.
Keys on the latch. You come in.
I'm only beating you up on age because I'm 40 in October. So any of my buddies that are older than me, I'm fucking letting them have
take
it,
advantage
dude.
of
I'm letting
it.
them
Because
have
after
it.
40, like things just start
No one gives a
falling
shit.
apart.
Yeah.
But what so without a father in my life, and my mother never remarried, I had my mentors, my male guidance were coaches, and we didn't have a lot of money, so my babysitter was sport. So it was very common for me to be on like 2 baseball leagues simultaneously. So I would get out of school, ride my bike home. I'd ride my bike to the field and practice on YMCA baseball or Tempe South Little League baseball from this time to this time, and then all-star practice started from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock, and then I'd come home.
Wow.
Right? And so it was like sport was always my babysitter, became my comfort blanket. It got me into school. Like I didn't have any money to go to college, but sport got me into college, right? Sport gave me my first job. So, and I found out that if I kept showing up and working out hard, okay, everybody has to be talented to a certain level to play pro sports.
Sure.
Let's assume that I was at that level. But for me to make that team, I had to outwork everybody that was around me. And I found peace and joy in that. And then so when the competition side of playing in the NFL in front of 100,000 people or whatever goes away, like you miss that. And it was actually, I was a doctor at what's called the P.F. Chang's Rock and Roll Marathon. I was a triage doctor, and I was watching people finish, right? And this was after I broke my neck. I became a doctor. I've left the NFL.
So you're rehabbed, you're healed.
I'm rehabbed, I'm healed. It's 2-3 years into practice, and I'm watching people finish the marathon. And I'm seeing the look in their eyes of like accomplishment, lifelong accomplishment, like joy, and like, I just overcame something massive.
Wow.
And I was like, so after that race, I was like, I'm going to run a marathon. I was a 400-meter track runner and footballs and all that kind of stuff. I'm never a distance runner.
Yeah.
Distance, whatever.
Yeah, seriously.
Like a half a mile, I've been like, I don't run that far.
Yeah.
But I was like, I'm going to do a marathon because I want the look that those people had in their eye. And then I was like, well, running a marathon doesn't sound very appealing, and I feel like I could walk it and finish it. So I'm going to do this thing. Somebody goes, we'll do a triathlon. I go, oh, swim, bike, run. Like, I'm totally going to do that. I didn't have a bike. And I was like, I'm going to do that. And then somebody's like, well, the hardest one is the Ironman. And I was like, I'm going to do that. So from doing nothing, I signed up for Ironman, right?
Yeah.
Without a bike, with a thought that I knew how to swim.
And you had a deadline.
And I had a deadline. and fear. So I always put something out in front of me that keeps me like a little bit fearful.
Yeah.
And that's why I show up. And so I remember going to the pool on the first day and be like, all right, so I'm reading this book about Ironman training. I'm supposed to swim like 2,000 meters today. Like, I don't know how many laps that is. Let me do the math. And I got in, I swam from one side of the pool to the other, and I was like, I can't breathe. Oh, so what did I do? I went and found a swim coach. Went and got a bike. I'm like, this bike sucks. What did I do? Went and got a bike coach. Went and got a run coach. Because my comfort was always not having the ego and understanding there's people that know more than I know.
And here's the thing about like some of those coaches, right? Someone might say like, well, hey, you were a doctor at the time, you've got the money, you can afford that stuff. And like, true. This is also pre-YouTube, pre-social media. It's like the amount of help, like if you go right now
It was
on
like
YouTube,
pre-internet, dude.
yeah, I know.
There was
bro.
like barely internet.
I was leaving that out of there. I know. But like people now can go and like literally YouTube how to get fitted for a bike. What bike on a budget. There's used bikes that people just go beyond because they're going from being a good bike rider to a great, and they sell their bike at a discount.
Yeah, for sure.
There's bikes for sale. Like you can really do things on a budget if
Yeah,
you're
I mean,
looking for it.
I didn't have anybody in my life that was in that realm. So like I just had to like go out. I just walked into a bike shop. I was like, who's the bike coach around here that you guys like? And they're like, here's some dude's card, and boom, I just went and checked them out.
What I'm getting at too is like you're looking for opportunity, because even though the world is more resourceful now, people have more excuses.
Oh, for sure.
And it's like, how the fuck does that happen? Yeah. There's more resources than ever, yet you got more excuses. And the point was, you were looking for the opportunity in it. I don't know how to do it. Like, let me go to this bike store. Like, oh, here's the bike store. Trek, cool. Hey, who's your guys' bike coach that you recommend? Like, you're looking for the opportunity in it because you wanted to accomplish it. So you were overcoming little obstacles in order to stay true to your goal. Versus, oh, well, I don't know how to. Well, this bike isn't the right bike. I don't know how to. Well, I don't know what the right bike is. Like, maybe this just isn't the goal.
Dude, it took me doing
People find so
Ironman
many excuses not to.
for like 8 years before I figured out what the right bike was.
Right.
My first bike was like a
Well, you're a
25
Neanderthal,
pound,
man. Like,
you know,
guys like
Schwinn.
you don't bike, bro. Like, they just make you a fucking bike.
My Ironman looks like this. Like I get out of the water in the top 100 because
Bro,
we're all
the
good,
first
and then
sighting
the rest of the
Bigfoot.
day, everybody runs past me.
No. Could you imagine, Eli? I wish you were mic'd up. Like fucking big buff Derek coming out of the water, but he got caught in some seaweed, and it's all over his body. And it's like it's sunset, right? Because like it's a long fucking race, and like it's literally the first sighting of like Bigfoot coming out of the water.
So I would come out. I'm pretty good at swimming now because I train it hard. But I would come out of the water like right around that 100, 120 mark out of 2,500 people.
Wow.
But then the rest of the day was hearing on your left, on your left, on your left, and dudes
shit.
just flying by me on the
bro.
bike, man. I'm like,
You're catching all
they're
that
like,
wind.
boom,
You're
boom, boom,
huge.
boom, boom.
Yeah.
Just
those little jockeys,
Dude.
man. Those little dudes
My
that are like
gosh,
jockeys, just aerodynamic. Just
dude, I had a couple. They write in Ironman and triathlons, they write your age on the back of your calf. And so somebody that gets passed all the time, like myself, I get to see how old they are to pass.
75,
Dude,
86.
there was a couple that
Dudes are
was
legit.
65 and 68, and they ran up behind me. There was probably 5 miles left in the Ironman run, and they're like, you know, it's really good to see a big guy like out here doing this. Like,
That's cool.
good job. And they just run past me, and I'm like, I can't keep up with the 65-year-old.
Just like the
lady that's like
the
5'3".
the football
100 pounds.
players coming back
I was
out
like, oh, can't
in
move my
any other
legs.
world, I would stomp your
It
ass.
just
right?
stomped me, dude.
Yeah.
But that's just, and the beauty of it, though, is the same thing I do.
And they were being
jiu-jitsu.
nice. It
They're
just-
absolute kindness.
Yeah.
But for me, those types of challenges, like I don't win any of those. Like
Yeah.
I've done well at a couple of them, but I do it because it reduces my ego, which is something I always work on.
and
Like
you're still
jiu-jitsu
accomplishing
reduces
something.
my
Like whether
ego.
you're first place or not, like you beat yourself.
Totally.
You
And
stuck
challenge
to it.
yourself.
You're committed. Are you still doing Ironmans down to this day?
Ironman, no. I'm heavy into the jiu-jitsu side of it right now.
Yeah. Are you familiar with Iron Cowboy?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, cool cat. We met him through like First Form and stuff like that, and Annie Frisella, and we've had him on the podcast before. And
Yeah. He did some of the epic charity challenges with
Gnarly.
our group. Yeah.
he did the 50 Ironmans in 50 days in 50 states.
That's
Has a documentary on it of like him
Hat
having
off.
to fly and going from Hawaii back to the States. Then he did that 100 Ironman in 100 days. Obviously, Ironman didn't sponsor it because there's this whole controversy about, well, these aren't real Ironmans. And
the distance
It
is the
sucks.
distance is the distance.
it just sucks like Ironman just kind of shunned it versus partnering with him on what he was doing because it's, dude, that's fucking gnarly.
Yeah.
Ripper, right? So fitness foundation with everything that you're doing, right? Like kind of coming up to just present day of, hey, I'm this business owner and I'm involved in everything, but I'm no longer like helping the people. I'm more so for shareholders, et cetera, et cetera. I'm getting out of it. Talk to me about your coaching. What pillars do you coach? Where do you feel like you've got the emphasis in, and how do you translate all of your experience into your coaching? And hey, why do you feel like you're a coach that people should spend time with?
Sure. Well, the upside of it was, you know, when I jumped out of the airplane without a parachute, when I called you, hey, Will, man, I don't do this anymore. And you're like, what are you going to do? I'm like, I don't know, man. Stand by.
Well, first of all, I was like, about time, bro. What took you
Yeah,
so
you
long?
actually said, like, good.
Yeah.
I actually believe
Yeah.
your first word. I go, hey, Will, I just left my job. And you're like, good.
It was.
Like, I think there was, like, no hesitation. You're good.
Yeah.
Like, But those,
Because I see that in
Yeah.
you. Like, so before we even get into the coaching, I guess, like, you and I first met through buddies, right? Like, we've got some mutual friends that are special operators and do some cool stuff in the military. And we were running some shooting events, Spartan 7 Adventures, and having some fun with that. And so you and I met through a buddy of ours, Taco, passed away not too long ago. So, hey, rest in peace, Taco. Fucking love that guy. Bummer. We can talk about that too. But we met through some of those guys, and doing those. And like, I'm funny when I say like, oh, Derek was just this big fucking bully, because you weren't.
No.
You're actually the opposite.
I'm like the nicest guy I know.
I'm the little brother of the circle of friends that go to Spartan 7, right? Tosh and Chris and everybody, and they're all old like you, right? Like I'm not. I'm young and fresh and handsome and buff and everything you guys aren't anymore.
Do you edit this at the end?
Fuck
or is it
no.
just everything comes out like
And everyone knows I'm just being funny, but it's like I want to live up to my big brothers, man.
Yeah.
I got to be better than them. I got to work harder than them, or I got to shoot better than them, and so they'll fuck with you or pick on you, and like it's all good because we're adults. So adult picking on is like they fucking question you or challenge you, and it pissed me off because there's just things that like I'm great at that I was contributing to that some of them would challenge for almost the sake of challenging it because it was little brother wanting the idea or wanting to do it, and I got zero of that from you, and you were happy to just take some of the shit details of just grocery shopping and preparing food, because like when we go to these events for everybody, like we were cooking food for them 3 times a day. We were, and like you and I would be cooking all the breakfast burritos in the morning before we go hit the range during the day. And yeah, man, it's like you were super humble in that aspect, and it didn't take an ounce away from your command presence or proficiency, but it was just nice, and it mattered a lot. And like a cool friendship grew through you and I just doing shit work.
Yeah.
Like you love the shit work because of what it represents when you're okay to do that stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't have a choice. I'm just little brother that's going to do shit work. It was just great. It was just great to be a part of that.
Well, first of all, I appreciate that, but I'll tell you a quick story on shit work and how it sets the tone of who the leader is. The first CEO job I got. So, and by the way, in fairness, when I walked away from this W-2 job, my whole career had been entrepreneurial up until I decided to go be a CEO for a hospital. So,
and you guys built
so
that. You guys
I did a lot.
It was
a
a losing company that you guys rebuilt and restructured.
We did a lot.
100%.
Yeah. So I actually was going into coaching, and Taco brought me up to American Addiction Centers to meet with their CEO because they had their crown jewel hospital was falling apart. Like it was very toxic. Doctors wouldn't talk to nurses, wouldn't talk to case managers.
It was going under.
Like everybody hated everybody. Fingers everywhere.
I remember hearing the losses from Taco.
It was a plane heading to the ground, right?
Yep.
And I didn't know that though. They kept that from me a little bit. But so I show up and I'm going to do some consulting, and they just say, hey, we really like who you are. Like, can you just be the CEO of this hospital? And I'm like, I've never done mental health before, but challenge check. Like, sounds new. Let's do that.
Sure.
So anyway, I show up day one and I'm in like 3-piece suit trying to impress somebody. Whatever a CEO of a hospital would wear, I'm trying to wear that. And I literally walk in and nobody knows me. Like it was that toxic. Like I had walked up to the front desk and they're like, can I help you?
And you kind of look like you're an addict.
And I do.
Because you're this gorilla in a fucking suit.
In like suit and watch and everything. They're like
coke, steroids, like, yeah,
easier. Take this guy took me to my office and whatever. But when
you do have amazing looking teeth, so it's not meth.
There you go.
Yep.
So when I walk around the hospital, I'm giving myself a tour. Like there was literally like no thing, and I'm like, dude, there's cigarette butts like everywhere. This place is gross. And I pulled one of the guys aside, and I'm like, this is what's going on around here? So it just doesn't look like somewhere I'd want to send somebody. There's a lot of trash. Oh, we haven't paid the vendors, the housekeepers in a long time, so they stopped showing up.
No kidding.
Okay, check, noted. Show up the next day, wearing the same suit. Walk in, I don't know anybody. I don't have any meetings on my agenda yet. So I just go back over to the janitor closet, grab some gloves, grab a couple bags, and go out front. I just start picking up cigarettes. I'm like, I don't know what to do here because I'm just starting the CEO role. I don't know anybody here. There was no big introduction. And I'm just gonna don't talk about it, be about it, right?
Pause
so I
right
start
there.
picking up cigarette butts.
Who's the gentleman, who's the billionaire that owns the Dallas Mavericks? I think he just sold them.
Cuban?
Yep. Mm-hmm. When he first bought the Dallas Mavericks, losing franchise, a lot of season ticket holders were not renewing, was not a good situation. He didn't even sit in his office. So when he became owner, right, CEO of the Dallas Mavericks, he took a desk that was in the center of all the other desks of all the staff members that worked for the Dallas Mavericks, and he made his calls right there in front of all of them. And he's like, hey, man, I'm not bigger than anything.
Yeah.
If I expect these guys to do a certain level of work, I got to be prepared to do the work. So all off season, he was sitting there calling prior season ticket holders who had not renewed, and he was trying to negotiate deals to get him to come back, incentivizing with certain things and introducing himself as a new owner and what we're going to do. We need your support, and et cetera, et cetera. And every mid-level management and below was like literally watching him work at one of their cubicle desks every single day.
Yeah.
And he's the owner of the Dallas. Like, and you think about those companies, like that company was worth several $100 million or $1 billion at the time. Like I think he sold it for 4 or 5, but it's like, it's interesting where it's like before you're concerned with like what you're going to do to this place, be more aware of who you're going to be and who, like, what you're going to mean.
The funny thing was, I didn't even do that with any intention behind it, other than like, I see something that needs to be done.
Here
I'm
trying
to
to
just
compliment
go do
you,
it, right?
Derek. You know,
But I mean, it
well,
wasn't.
but I know what you mean. But even though you didn't really know what to do,
this is dirty. I'm going to fix it.
But that's the point. Is like through football, through different things that you had, it's like you understand your environment and just where culture is going to be rooted from, and you cared about the place. And if it's not going to be clean, like why would people care about it?
Here's the beauty of what happened, though, and this I think is a great lesson. As I'm out there in my suit, and I'm picking up trash, right? The previous CEO drives by and takes a picture of me, unbeknownst to me. I don't see it, and then texts it to everybody on the staff. Look at this. You guys are going downhill. Your friggin' CEO's picking up trash. Look how far you guys have fallen. You'll never make it without me anymore, blah, blah, blah. But whatever it was, right? The guy that I replaced.
So, yeah, I'm picking up your trash because you made this place fucking fall.
Yeah. The effect that had,
They had your back.
everybody lined up at my door. I will follow you.
Yep.
Without me ever saying a word. So, like, leadership isn't about what you say. It's about what you do, right? And then at a high level, it's almost about what you tolerate, the standard that we talked about earlier.
Man.
But I could have walked in there and held a meeting and told everybody, I'm your leader.
No.
But I walked in there and I said, there's a job that needs to be done. I'm just going to do it without any fanfare.
Attitude.
And the other guy published it for me.
Yeah.
And they all were like, this is our boss. Who is this guy? When did he start? This guy's picking up trash in a 3-piece suit. Where is he?
You know.
I will follow him.
A player's coach. You know what a player's coach is.
Yeah.
Right? Like attitude reflects leadership, as in the attitude of your people is a reflection of your leadership.
Right.
Attitude of them reflects leadership. And like when you come from that level, like dude, just the support that's there. It's amazing, right? So now we're getting into coaching, Faction Foundation. Will, I'm quitting my job. I'm fucking out of here. You called a handful of other friends and just let them know.
You all said the same thing.
Yeah.
Go do something that you're passionate about with people that you love. Across the room, like you said it in different
We
words.
all know you're capable. Like we see you as a skill
do something
set.
that you love doing and do it with people you love to be around.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right. So I paused out for about 3 days and said, what do I love doing? I love working with people, so I could go back into practice and see patients, but I don't want to do that. I've been coaching these SEAL Fit and Spartan 7 and SEAL Grinder PT, and I've owned CrossFit gyms. I've been doing a lot of that, and I've been CEO leadership mentoring for a long time. I was like, I really love the coaching side. And then I mixed that with, when did I love coaching the most? I loved coaching the most when I played pro ball. Why? Because I had a very clear plan. I had a playbook. I had a very clear coach, and I was surrounded by a team that held me accountable. And that, like iron sharpened iron, that I wanted to show up for and wanted to show up for me, like a tribe. And so I've seen a lot of plans out there that live independently, not interested. I've seen playbooks. Hey, follow this, not interested. There's coaches out there. That's great. I'm not discounting coaches. But then having a tribe to go with that, right, is to me the magic, because I don't need it to be the Derek Price show, right? So that's why Will Grimes. So you guys know Will's on the team. Yay, Will.
Hey, I just found out.
Will.
All right.
So Will, you're on the team. He's
right.
been on the call, but
It's called voluntold.
he was voluntold. Will, I need you in my team.
Yeah.
So I took my
Happy to be
passion
there.
and said, okay, I want to do coaching, and I want to do it in the framework of having a very clear plan of what problem am I solving for? What's my playbook? So I wrote a book. I'm going to be the coach for right now until we develop other coaches. And it's very important for me to reach out and develop a tribe of people that is the circle that I live in, so that other people can experience those circles.
all we need in this world is another coach, though. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I'm only saying that to you
For sure.
because like people know that like my coaching is different than yours. I do one-on-one coaching, right? Like we're super different, and I'm a huge fan of what you're doing. This is why you're on my podcast, Abundance, right? Like there's no threat here as far as like you stealing business from me. It's silly. It's a great framework, but I fucking hate coaching. Not personally. I don't hate to coach. I literally fucking hate a lot of the coaching industry, and there was a
Me
gentleman
too, because they're selling smoke in the place of substance. Like,
When I got
show me your resume, show me your
100%,
receipts.
right? And I got introduced to a gentleman, Wes Watson, aggressive guy, big guy, and well off guy, and authentically himself, extreme. A lot of people know who I'm talking about. And as I was talking to him and kind of bitching about like the coaching world, as I'm on a call with him, and he's like, "Yeah, that's great, big dog, but you're not doing shit about it." And that's when he got my attention. I was like, yeah, like, what do you mean? He's like, well, dude, you got all these things to say about these charlatans and smoke and mirrors and guys that don't actually fucking do it, but they're coaching. He's like, great. And then there's just no other option than that. He's like, you're not contributing to the coaching world. So it's like, are you the guy that doesn't vote and you just fucking hate you just bitch about who the president is, you know, like, and it just got me thinking, you know, and it was like, yeah, I agree.
I think
Especially
the world needs
and I
coaches
coach
right
a
now.
lot of lenders and realtors. Like mine is one-on-one coaching, but I really enjoy being specific to the business that I'm in, right?
Yeah.
And it just sparked me of like, yeah, like here I am bitching about, you know, a lot, not every coach, but a lot of just the coaching in my world and all these programs and all this stuff. And I'm like, this isn't it. Like Eli and I really do the shit. We really know what works. And it's like, well, yeah, buddy, but you're not contributing to the pool of coaches. So like you're just leaving everybody else with no other option but I guess those.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, why aren't you in it? You know, and I was like, yeah, hey, you're right. I said, so you'll help me? He's like, yeah, motherfucker. Verbatim. He cusses a lot. I was like, all right, cool. So like, how do we do this? He goes, 12 grand. I go, what? He goes, sorry, it's 12,500. And I was like, yeah. He's like, yeah, 12,500. But I'll show you how I structure certain things. And we can talk about it. And I literally spent $12,500 to just sit down with this guy for an hour.
Yeah.
I made $140-something thousand my first week.
Yeah.
But it was
It's
like,
a good return.
it's a great return. But it was leaning into, but he's like, listen, dude, you already have a huge following on Instagram. You've already got these skill sets. He's like, do you know me? This is the one thing that he told me that really clicked. As we're on that consulting call, he's like, do you realize, he's like, how many realtors do you guys already have? And how many realtors are you guys seeing at events? He's like, do you know how many people are probably right around you that would love to be coached by you, but because you don't offer it, it's not a thing?
Sure.
Well, he was right, because I made 20 fucking phone calls and 8 people signed up and I made 150 grand, 147 grand. Like, and it was like, and he taught me just some structuring on elite coaching and stuff. And, but the point is, like, I didn't take any more coaching after that, but it cost that much to just get certain levels of knowledge on how he structures certain things. And it was well worth it. And like, people have such they're so hard pressed to invest in themselves. Like when people pay for my coaching, or if they have certain doubts or obstacles, it's like, hey man, I've paid $12,500 for an hour, but it made me this much.
Yeah.
I've also spent, and by I mean Eli and I, we've spent 25 grand for me to go sit with a guy for a weekend just to find out what I didn't want to fucking do.
Yeah.
And that was just as
That's
powerful
just as valuable.
as, now you need some wins. You can't just be spending money like, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. Like,
Yeah.
but it was equally important. Like, but it's the investment in self. So like when you've got coaching and it costs people money, dude.
Right.
Like the number one thing I wish people would understand is like, if you can get around a good circle and good people, investing in yourself is the most powerful thing that you'll do.
Sure.
You've just got to find the right way to do it. And you got to be prepared that when you spend that dollar, you got to be committed. And I love when people spend that dollar. And then, you know, one of the biggest things that Wes said is, he goes, Will, people pay to pay attention. If everything's fucking free, it won't work. I didn't listen to him all the way. We offered some free stuff and this and that. And Eli will tell you the behavior with free communities and the behavior about people that pay and pay it forward to themselves and commit and they're on the hook for their financial piece. It's like, dude, it's not even on the same planet, their behavior and commitment. And it's almost like, hey, do I need the money for coaching? Like, no, but if I'm going to spend my time on it, yes, because it's a business. But it's not so much just for the coach receiving payment. It's this commitment that somebody makes to themselves and to the coach, and like that financial piece to it. It's like, it means something. That's your hard-earned dollar.
Right.
that you're putting up. And like for the past year and a half with us coaching, you could do a blind test to him, to Eli, or to me. I know exactly which groups are free and which ones are paid for. It's take that quick, and you can just tell, right?
Same thing in practice. Like with patients, if it's free, they flee. If they pay, they stay. Like
so, you guys have your own little rhymes. Like, and talk to me a little bit about Faction Foundation. Cool. That's your coaching program, right? Like you guys coach. You've got specific pillars. You've got a great community. You know, and like I was being a little facetious, like, oh, all we need is like another coach, right? And I got told, I was saying the same thing. So like, you're probably looking at like, I tell you what. Coaches nowadays is like getting a tribal band tattoo in the late 90s. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, you're going to get real creative. Like, oh, you're a coach. Oh, great. And it's like, but hold the horses, because you do have something that's pretty unique. And not only just like your contextual experience and how you deliver it, but just the community that you're building around. But just more specifically, like how's that structured, and who's your ideal person? Like who are you looking for with those things?
So all the questions, I think it starts with the receipts at the beginning, because I think that who the coach is makes a difference. And I coach to what I'm good at, and that is the development of human capital. I don't coach the specifics of, if you want a very specific weight loss program or strength program, I could help you there, but there's people better than me. If you want a very specific faith or very specific family therapy, I'll point you in those right directions.
Because your pillars are fitness,
faith, family, fitness, and finance.
You say it way better than me.
Faith, family, fitness, and finance.
I always miss the faith part, right, Lee? Is it the faith one?
It's intentional. It's intentional. Watch out for lightning bolts. But what I've done is, and the reason that I feel like I can speak to those is, been a father for 30 years. I have 3 daughters that I've raised that still love me. My wife wants me, doesn't just need me. I've been a doctor, been a professional athlete, and been a CEO, and ran, $100 million companies.
This is what's cool.
So it's hard to say that I don't know those realms.
Well, not to cut you off, but this is what's cool. I feel like in our space of entrepreneurship, we need more practitioners, because there's a famous thing we used to say in the coaching world of like, those that can't do, teach.
Yeah.
Right? To an extent. But you've got some great coaches that weren't necessarily great players, right? But that's football that requires an extraordinary level of talent. That's why you can have average players that were great in high school or average college, but then they became an amazing, like look at Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
What was his football career?
Yeah, exactly.
Mildly interesting at best. Mm-hmm. But in like the entrepreneur space, like it's just different. And it's not even just entrepreneurs. Like you're just teaching men and women how to be better men and women at whatever they got going on. And what I love about that is you don't have a lot of practitioners that are great at that, teaching that. That's where you do get a lot of smoke and mirrors. That's where you do have folks that have life crumbling behind the curtain, yet they're out here.
Yeah, they're broke and they're telling you how to make money. Like
a lot. And the guys like you, not to cut you off again, the guys like you are too busy winning in life.
Yeah.
Most of them, man, they don't want to stop to teach because it's a pain in the ass.
I'd make more money if I didn't do coaching.
100% you would.
Yeah, I make more money picking up the phone to Headhunter and say, like, replace me tomorrow.
That's what I mean. It's like no different than like, man, why doesn't Jocko and Dwayne Johnson run for president and vice president?
Yeah.
Why do you think? They like their life. That's why. They're fucking rich. They're doing what they want with the businesses they have, and they fucking love their life, and they don't want to be subjected to political bullshit.
Yeah.
On a very micro level, compared to presidency, is a lot of dudes that are great at life, that are winning, that are living their best life. Why would they stop to coach, man? Like it's because if you're going to do it well, you're taking a load of stress in addition to normal life, your commitment to people. Like there's just a lot that comes with leadership and with coaching, and you really got to be called to do it because there's a lot of responsibility behind it. And a lot of guys that are just crushing at life, it's like, yeah, man, like they're not in a place where they want to do it. And it becomes unfortunate because those are the exact fucking guys you wish would do it.
Yeah, it's just it takes thousands of hours to become a coach, and it takes decades of wisdom. If I'm going to sit down and coach with somebody, that means you're going to bring a unique problem to me, and I'm going to have a solution from my bank of historicals, like something I've seen, studied, done before. Like, how does that work out for a 22-year-old kid?
And you're going to
tell me how I should date my wife after 30 years old when you're 25 years old. Tell me how I raised my 18-year-old kid when you're 26.
Do you want to know what I did?
Super interested in hearing.
I'll tell you. I actually have a response for you because I was a cop at that age.
Yeah.
I think I was like 20, 28, somewhere in there, like after the Marine Corps, some mercenary work and then police work. And I remember walking into houses for like verbal domestics and things. Physical domestics are different because there's I'm a different cop showing up to that. But for like verbal domestics and things like that, man, and you got a husband in there and he's fighting with his wife and they got 4 kids and they're struggling to make ends meet, and here comes 28-year-old Will.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, I tried to tell a guy what to do and it didn't go south, but he told me to shut the fuck up. In other words, you know, like, one of the senior officers, he helped out with the call, and it was fun and it went well.
Yeah,
and he was able to relate to him, and like, one of my senior officers was just like, hey, Will, like, you got to find a better way because there's nothing you can do to relate or say.
You can't bridge that gap.
So the only thing I could do, which is, and it's not coaching, the only thing I could do is after that, on the next calls I'd have to follow for the next couple of years, is I would tell him, hey, man, I can't relate to you. I had to just be honest. Hey, brother, I can't relate to what you're going through and what this is. I don't have kids and I'm not married. So I don't know what to tell you there, but here's what I will say. Here's what law says about domestic environments. If you throw a glass against the wall and it breaks, you're going to get charged with damaged property in a domestic environment. And they would say, what? I'd say, you probably think domestic violence is just assaulting your wife, and it's not. Domestic is an enhancer. So any crime you commit in a domestic environment is a crime that gets this domestic stamp on top of it. So if you smack your wife or husband, it's assault and battery in a domestic environment. If you throw a glass against the wall, it's damaged property in a domestic environment. Like, the only thing I could do, but it was just being humble and just knowing my place, was educate them on what the law said.
Sure.
I was wrong in the beginning as a young cop because I was trying to tell them what to do.
Sure.
Versus, let me just tell you and educate you on what law says to help you make a better decision.
And I think that's where Faction Foundation, where I do it a little bit differently. So having had such a deep, I mean, I ran a lot of doctor office for a long time, saw lots and lots of patients. And I don't like the etherical of, like, I feel better, I think things are better. Like, I want objective data, right? Like, I want to see objective movement to show me the delta of
You
change.
want to track it.
I want to track it.
You don't want them to feel better. You want to show them they're better.
When you start with me, it starts to see if we're even a good match. We got to get on a phone call, because I'm not for everybody, and everybody's not for me. But if we do to the next step, like, there's a deep assessment where I get a very objective score of each one of those big categorical pillars. And then we do these micro intentions. I have a full playbook that you follow. We have the huddles where I hold you accountable and go over different lessons, where your tribe is at. And then we remeasure at the end. And it's that delta that I'm looking for. Like, hey, man, when you started, it's like, think of weight loss. Like, if you're a good weight loss coach, you'd walk in and say, like, Will, what are you right now? Like 285, 290 right now?
What a dick.
Did you see that, Eli?
See?
Eli, did you see how I
man.
worked that in at the end?
Listen, for anyone that felt bad for you in the beginning of this podcast, now they know what's up. Now they know I was front loading because I was just waiting for your shit to
But
come
for like
through.
yeah,
A little verbal judo there, huh?
for like if you were a weight loss coach, you need to know somebody starting. Then you run your
you
plan.
can't eyeball it. You got to.
And then you know their end. And like, did you lose weight? Yes or no?
And what kind of weight?
Yeah.
Did you lose body fat? Or you
exactly.
lost 20 pounds, but your body composition is the same. You're still 15% body fat, even though you're 15 pounds lighter. Your body composition is the same. Like, hey, we did this wrong.
Yeah.
So you're lighter, but not in a good way. Like, you want to you want to be able to track it, you know, or like even things like, man, I've gotten better at stuff, but not felt better.
Yeah.
It's even that. So like sometimes people are like, I feel like I'm better. Well, let's track it to make sure.
Let's track it.
But even when
Data
you're tracking
doesn't lie.
it and it's like, hey man, you're better, but you're not feeling better.
Right.
Whole different conversation with it, right? But the point is, like, the way that you guys track things with your coaching, it opens up and creates.
It's just like pro sports, man.
Contextual conversation.
We don't ever talk about your sports, but I know you play ball.
I played pro ball for 5 minutes, 3 minutes.
You showed up.
Yeah.
But in coaching, I have a very clear plan for you. Once we have an understanding of where you're at and where you need to go, just like doctoring. It's doctoring and coaching is the same thing.
Right.
And then we come up with, like, what's the playbook? Like, what are we going to do? What's the treatment side, right? And then you have the coach, the doctor, the educator, or the coach, all same, keeping you on track. But then what's unique here is, like, what I really loved was that team element. Like, I want brothers and
that's
sisters.
where the group
that's
coaching
why I'm really
each
bringing
week
that group coaching in. And you've been on my group coaching calls. Yeah. It's not me as an orator to a crowd who's on mute. It's me pulling from gems from different people and playing off of that, and so that transparently, so that I walk away 1% better.
In addition to like the group calls, everything that you do with the community there, something unique is like you also do quarterly retreats, right? Because you run people through, and you can repeat there's plenty of cycles, but you take people through 3 phases, roughly 90-day cycles. But at the end of each 90 days, you have retreats where people get to show up and participate and do some things. And that's what's like really unique compared to a lot of different coaching. And talk to me about the different retreats that you want to do. Are there physical challenges? Are there mental challenges? What's the intention behind the retreat? What are you trying to get them to gain from that, in addition to the obvious one of community and being, hey, I've seen all these people in group coaching, and now we get to go mingle. But what are they doing when they're mingling at these retreats?
Well, I think you did a pretty good job of setting the stage. But so I like 90-day sprints because I can stay focused for 90 days, and I don't feel like I signed up for like a 10-year program. Like, hey, give me 90 days, and basically if you like what's going on and you're making the moves, keep going. Cool. Yep. That's what we move. But at these retreats, at these summits, what I like to do is it's 2 days of indoor classroom time, but I break it into like blocks of faith, family, fitness, and finance over those 2 days. And I like to come out and say like, hey, here's my big grandiose theory, and here's how we're going to play with this. But then like I'm going to bring you in. Hey, Will, talk to us about scaling business, because you're better at that than I am. And a good
lot
coach.
better. No, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
better.
super better looking, but like you're better
Like
at business.
significantly better.
Like there's not even a number to quantify how much better.
Right.
But like, think of a good head coach, or think of like a really good doctor. Like, if you went to a doctor that you really trusted, is he going to be the guy that like does your kidney biopsy and gives you a total knee?
He's
and
your
does
overall
eye?
doctor.
Or is he like,
And then you
Will,
got,
I want you to go
specialists.
here.
Yeah.
I want you to go to this ortho for your knee. I want you to see this skin doctor over here, and then come back to me.
Yeah.
Like, that's where I'm at. So for Faith, Family, Fitness, and Finance on that summit,
Bringing
I
specialists
bring in specialists, but I don't want to just
so
talk
you don't have
about
to
it.
work too hard, and then just other guys can do the work for
Well, I
you.
don't know about. I think you kind of shit on it a little bit, but it's not that. But I don't like just hearing things. I don't like PowerPoints. I like action. So I want to reverse engineer. Like, okay, where do you want to be in 90 days from now? And let's build a plan with these
But
guys.
it's important,
talking
man,
in the
because
room.
when you bring in like these special guests, right? Like a lot of the benefit I've had from Andy Frisella, Ryan Pineda, is the community of like people that they've put me in front of. It's huge. So like when these folks are getting to learn from specialists per se,
Right.
that you bring on, whether they're better than you or not, or they just have an emphasis that you want them to speak to, they also now are gaining this relationship with this person. The number one underrated thing nowadays, because it's just been played out and talked about too much, but it is valuable, networking.
Absolutely.
But don't go network for the sake of networking. Like it's within these private groups where you have a certain level of player there and these special, and it's like, it is life changing.
Well,
And that's the benefit of that.
There's a falsehood in the perception where people today think they have networks because of how many followers they have.
Or because you fucking
they
go to
have-
something down the road for $40.
They don't have
Like,
any relationship with these people. Like,
Right.
can you call them on their phone? Do you know when their birthday is? Did you wish them a Merry Christmas?
100%.
If the answer is no, they're not in your network. So back to, and we call this the camp. And keep the huddle is our calls. You know, we have the playbook, we have the coach,
Just
and then we
real
have the camp. So it's
meathead,
very
real easy,
very sport based.
real
That's where it came
okay.
from. But what I really like too is like, so we do 2 days classroom, but there's some physical stuff. Like we might do some a little bit of crucible work to do some physical intentionality to the lesson if it makes sense, and we choreograph that with the different specialists. But the day after the event's really cool, and this is where all these people that you've been showing up and seeing virtually, your virtual boat crew, your virtual team, your virtual huddle, who's showing up, it gives you an opportunity where we have a multitude of different events. So like Josh Gonzalez is my COO, he's vice president of operations. Like I stand in front and do 10%, and Josh runs like 90% to make sure that the business and the analytics
Easily.
and everything else works. And I just get to stand in the front. I'm the arrow on the spear. He's the big long shaft now.
Yeah.
That sounded terrible.
That sounded amazing.
Well, Josh,
That's
going to
be the intro to the podcast.
the
Yeah.
big long shaft.
You're great at this.
I appreciate what I do. But to that end, like he's a 100-mile runner. He's an endurance runner, right?
Yep.
So the day after, for people that are, we're going to do the first one in Arizona, he's going to take them out on a desert run if they want to do that. I'm going to go do a self-defense seminar. I have Chris coming to town who's going to take people and go do handgun course. So we're going like different directions so you can play where you want to play, but then we're all going to get back together like late afternoon. Families, kids, like remember, this is about building you as a better human, building your families together, building your generations together.
Yeah.
Right? And when we do that, like I want the families to come together because I like to have my family and my kids around men and women that I respect and that are raising their families that I hold core values
I feel like
with.
a couples retreat would be good too.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Right? Like when possible, not to throw a cart in front of a horse. I know some folks
Dude,
have done
I'm
that
in.
before.
Like a cruise or something.
Something because like anytime your spouse can be a part of it versus you coming home to the same environment, same energy, you're jazzed up, you've been changed, you've been doing something for 90 days, you know, and like you want to come back and try to translate that. It's really hard versus getting that. Almost like couples coaching would be cool too.
Well, I mean, you know, like you proposed before this podcast, 2025, day $1 and Faction come together and we run a couples retreat on a cruise boat. So
100%. On a cruise boat?
yeah.
I don't swim very good.
Well, unless
I'm
you plan on
290.
jumping off of it.
But I'm 290, a lean
you
muscle.
float fantastic.
I'm a rock. I'm a rock.
Right to the bottom of the ocean.
Right to the bottom.
But the point is, the beauty of it, Will, and the reason that I got out of the structured corporate hierarchy is to follow my passion.
Influence.
And my passion is to, like, if I can move the needle for people to have a little bit better life and to get that satiety that I feel and have some of the experiences that I've been blessed with, and I can keep myself around these people and closer to the fire and invite other people in that maybe wouldn't have, it's hard to get a front side seat with pro athletes and SEALs and 9-figure business people. Like, where are you going to find that? Where are you going to find that? Like,
Not intimately.
not intimately. Like,
Not intimately.
you have to almost join these types of groups to get that invite. And then from within that group, you're going to make your own micro groups and your little cliques and stuff like that. And I highly encourage it, man. Like, this world is we're accepting, we're dropping the standard every day.
Sure.
And we're accepting weaker and weaker version of what I think that we should be as a family.
Yeah.
As a patriarch, as a leader, as an alpha.
But equal to
we're just
that, I think there's families and spouses that are actually reaching for more because they feel that coming.
Absolutely. And then I'm the magnet.
And they're trying to find where to go seek that.
And guys like you're the magnet. Like, look, I know that you do well in business. I know that the coaching side almost has nothing to do with what hits your bank account. The coaching doesn't move the commas for you. But I know why you do it, because you act hard when you're on these because you're a hard man. But underneath that, you love to help people. Like, you actually genuinely love helping people.
I absolutely love it. Yeah.
And that's probably why you're hyper successful.
And I'm not as hard on our podcast when you're not here. This is for you.
I've watched your podcast.
This is just letting people fucking know when the old man comes in the room.
Well, I mean, I can't remember who said it. I think Tim said it, but it was something like, you can't be a peaceful man unless you have the ability to, incite violence.
The whole warrior in a garden versus
harmless.
a gardener in a war.
Yeah. And so, like, look, I know you're a hard guy. Like, I'm a hard guy. Like, we both train fighting and we do all this kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, like, I would rather help somebody than hurt somebody.
So that's where I've grown a lot, right? Because like I've always wanted to help, and I've helped in certain theaters. And like when I got to business, and Eli will tell you, he's been around for all of it just about. I've always wanted to help. It was just learning how to temper and find more impactful, more proficient ways to help. Right? Like I had a couple tools on my tool belt from police work and Marine Corps and doing some great things there. We're in a different realm when it comes to like business, and like when it does come to like fatherhood and business, like there is places of compassion, finesse, timing, reconciliation, changing a decision. There's just so much that like goes into it, man. Like I've had to just become more well-rounded in just my own life. And I'll tell you this much, what helped me be a good coach nowadays is just changing all of those things in myself first. Like I'd have so much self-talk, and my thinking is very verbal. I think out loud a ton, and so I would just talk Eli to death. Like him and I would argue, and I would literally convince him it was my fault.
Yeah,
that's me. It's like where did I mess up? Where can I be better?
Was, though.
Probably was.
Just saying.
He is Jewish, so when
Eli's
he didn't pay for lunch,
Eli and Josh are like the two smartest people I've been around.
But their quietness is like manipulative. You know what I mean? Because you're not getting a response.
Josh keeps me on mute on my own Zoom call, and
Josh can just run away from everybody
every time.
Yeah, but I was like really trying to seek that change in myself. Like, where am I not tempered with myself? Where am I not forgiving of myself? Where is there not grace for me? And as I changed it in myself, I had more contextual experience to then identify and point out in others. And then even if it's just the deliverable and how I'm speaking to someone, it got significantly better. And like that's what's been fun, man. Is coaching is just there's a chess game to it, which is being great at communication. the influence that you get with it, but it's also slightly selfish in the sense of I've never felt more sharp than when I was an instructor in the Marine Corps and when I've been a leader and an instructor in real estate.
Truth.
Because when you're constantly sharpening everyone else, it's like it keeps you so diligent and so sharp. It's like I do receive something from it as well. And like for that aspect by itself is worth it to stay sharp for my own practical application of exercising in business.
Well, I think it's fantastic. Like I actually ran into a good buddy of mine and I told him what I was doing. And he's like, well, that'd be great. Like, I'm sure there's a lot of people that need that, but like, I don't need that.
Oh,
and I was like,
so pretentious.
I was like, man, it's super interesting because like when I was with Barry Sanders and the first team offense was running, he was taking reps, and then second team offense, I'd be taking reps, and he would practice handoffs. And if you played football as a running back, it's just accepting a handoff is like, to a golfer would be the equivalent of putting the ball on the tee. It's like the most fundamental. It'd be like stepping up to the batter's box. I'm going to practice stepping up to the batter's box.
Yeah.
Not hitting a ball, but practice stepping up to the batter's. And he did it so many times that one day I asked him, I said, Barry, like, you're the best in the world at being a running back. Why do you practice handoffs countless reps every day? And it's very simple. He's like, oh, because like whoever is the best at the basics is the best in the world. And
it also sets the standard for the team.
And that was the most words he ever said, like at one point in time.
Yeah.
Anyway, to begin with, so it was amazing. But the point of that being is, if you're somebody that says like I've outgrown coaching, then you're in a unique circle that doesn't include people like Usain Bolt and Barry Sanders and any pro baseball player.
Yeah.
Like.
But more importantly than what he's saying to you, it's that he's letting himself hear that.
Yeah.
It's like you just said that, and then you'll allow yourself to believe it versus just saying you don't want it.
Yeah,
right.
I don't need coaching, but I'll read books on self-help.
Don't get me started on fucking books, buddy. Like I actually read a lot more than people think, and as you can see, I've got the Bible there, and it's not on fire.
It's going to be open soon.
I read it. Yeah, I read it. Ask Eli.
I'm messing with you.
Yeah, I read that every day. That one's really cool. That one's got cliff notes in it. So like as you're reading it, it's got some like translation to it to just help
very cool.
actually translate. But we like that. But man, we should probably have you on once a quarter, twice a year. Just come back, talk about Faction Foundation, talk about some success stories.
Let's help me build this business, man.
We're doing it.
Call me. Let's go. Let's get it going.
Well, we're doing it right now. Like you'll get a lot of views from this, and obviously we encourage a lot of people.
Follow me at Derek Price.
Whatever it is.
Instagram, still learning. Like it's Instagram, Derek C. Price.
You know of Instagram.
You told me.
You know of Instagram. My man.
I'm not that old, man.
My man.
Yeah, I'm learning. Josh is over there cringing. He's like, how does this guy go on a podcast? He doesn't know his own Instagram handle.
No, it's just genuine to who you are, man. We'll put links in and people will find it. And Eli and I, we do a couple different good sized real estate events here, around the country and in Colorado. And
congratulations on all those.
Well, it'd be great to have you come speak to realtors.
I'd love to.
Right, because what's great about your coaching is people, realtors can invest in your coaching, and it's a little bit different than what I'm coaching them to on like the practical application side of their career versus them still getting fulfilled here. And there's just a lot of really cool crossover that we have as far as your style versus my style, and we're gonna find a way to keep embedding it.
Awesome, appreciate it. Thanks for
having
me.
Having come, man. Eli, appreciate you, buddy. You didn't get to talk today. Not that you talk much anyway, but I liked it. Right on, right on. Till next time, guys. We are out of here.
Yep, appreciate it.
I'ma sip it on down and turn it up. Southbound and we trailblazing, yeah, bud. And the posse dirty, filthy like a spit cup. Dropping bombs out the gate, bringing big guns. Raw records, we the stake, we the A1. Speak up and we know where we came from. Welcome to the posse, let me hear you yell long cut. A little whiskey on the tongue and some long cut. I'ma sip it on down and turn it up. Southbound and we trailblazing, yeah, bud.